Greetings and salutations, friends. I did threaten you with a good time. As I mentioned, I really don't like this map. I really despise this map, and I want to complain about it. Part of me doesn't want to give Trench Crusade the attention, as I think this is going to be a flash-in-the-pan product that will expire all on its very own, but you know what? I've never let that stop me before when it comes to complaining about things, and this is... Okay. I've gone over this quite a few times recently, right? That I'm starting to consider Grimdark to simply just be a lazy setting in and of itself, because its only real punch, its selling point, is in essence shock factor. That's it. It's making a drawing like this and being like, oh my god, it's a demon. What does the demon do? What does the demon mean? And then waiting for your brain to create the majority of the headcanon surrounding it. And as it is your brain creating the headcanon, it will naturally be the kind of headcanon that you prefer, which is a excellent strategy for, in essence, tricking people into being interested in your setting, as you make them construct the majority of your lore for you in their own heads. That is the trick of Grimdark that Trench Crusade has, admittedly, applied very, very, very successfully. The only problem is that ever since they started creating their own lore, most of it's kind of ass. Relying yet again simply on, oh my god, demons, rather than any actual, true foundation. And the map is the ultimate illustration of this. So, we're going to do some doodles here today. Beginning with just a visualization of the size of Hell's forces on this map, right? This is Hell. Now, the one top here, this one, is sort of Hell, and is also not kind of Hell. This one right up here. Because this is a plot contrivance to give the Northern Kingdom something to fight. That's about all it is. It is a plot contrivance. A random Hellgate opens on the Collier Peninsula for reasons, occasionally. It exists for no other reason than to be something for Norway, Sweden, and Finland to fight. That's the only reason for its existence. Avignon, I actually kind of like. That is a nice touch, because that, of course, was the seat of the traitor popes in France, during the time where France was not very fond of the Papal States at all, or Italy in general, and attempted to create their own competing pope. That's a nice touch, although, again, the story behind it is kind of retarded. See, what they should have done with Avignon is literally just have cultists rise up and seize the city, or some kind of cultist ritual that steals it off the map or something, and places it in hell where all of the citizens suffer for eternity. Some such nonsense. Instead, the remnants of a defeated heretic army take the city, and for reasons unbeknownst to anyone else, despite having the victorious army on their heels, they just never retook the city. Why? Because apparently it's just too dangerous now. Really? So, the army of Christendom, capable of defeating the heretics at their strongest, led by a ritual, not by a ritual, by a literal manifestation of fucking Beelzebub. They could defeat that. That wasn't a problem. They beat that. It was a 6-year war, which is something, but still, they could defeat that. But taking one city in the heart of France, nah. It's too much, bro. It's too much. This, by the way, was the literal embodiment of Beelzebub that they managed to kill. A Grail Herald? Basically an enormous fuck-off demon monstrosity thing. The armies of Christendom defeated this and its countless armies, but taking one city... come on. You can't ask for too much. That'd be kind of silly, right? Zuluxantopian, I admire your spite. One day it may match mine. I hope so. Draken, old man yells at map. Star Sector, you Swede. That's actually why I'm taking 2 days sort of off streaming now. To start learning Star Sector. Raven, Archlay, there's more important things to do. And Anya Lele, episode 3, Decay, part 1 is out. It's the bad path, not the win good one, with Oni-chan. Well, first there's the mod playthrough, which I'm getting a thumbnail for right now. And Mr. Twist Frenzy, would Trench Crusade be an IP worth buying when it fails and tweaking it to be good? The problem is, it's based entirely on the drawings of Mike Francina, who is himself a enormous wokist. And without the art, which is the only appealing thing of this setting, in my opinion, you don't really have much. Like, this is all based on one guy's doodles, in essence. So, I'm not sure about that. But now we get to the dumb parts, the things that are truly, actually, genuinely upset me. So, these are all the forces of hell, marked up on the map here. They've got a bunch here, and the god-awful end of Europe that nobody likes. They've seized Gibraltar for, again, reasons unbeknownst to anyone. And they've got a little slice of, what's like old-school Georgia over here, and what is this, Azerbaijan? Whatever? Over there? Okay. That's what hell has. All right. Then you've got the Iron Sultanate, which is, down here. They're kind of just isolationists, basically. They were added in primarily as another Deus Ex Machina to have the Islam faction be there somewhere and not be instantaneously overrun overnight. So they spawned forth a giant wall of molten lava and metal that is proven impervious to any weapon at all, including the demons. So the unstoppable hordes of hell have been cockblocked by a wall.
Here's the question. Fire is the answer.
It's a very fancy wall, don't get me wrong. It's a very mystical, magical wall, but still, a wall. Okay, very well. And Mecca, which you can see down here, is just kind of also Deus Ex Machina in that it's fine. Mecca is just fine. The demons haven't attacked Mecca, despite owning all of the territory around it. It's outside the wall, so it's not protected by the Sultanate in any way whatsoever. But there's sandstorms surrounding it. Yeah, sandstorms. So far, the demons have been cockblocked by a wall and dust. Fantastic. Why are we afraid of these again? What is the danger of demonkind exactly? I'm kind of starting to get curious here. This too, of course, is simply just so as to not offend the Muslims, basically, and we're like, oh, no, your religion is totally valid too. Hold on. Isn't God real in this universe? Well, yeah. Doesn't he talk to people? Yes. We communicate directly with God. Yes. Who the fuck is Allah then? Why can't the Pope literally just send a letter across the Mediterranean to the Sultan and go like, listen, we can talk to God? We can actually talk to God. Okay, you come on over here, we'll hook you up on a telephone, and he'll explain this to you that, nah, you're worshiping the same dude, you just had different prophets, okay? I am literally God, we're talking prophets here. These are minuscule differences in your theological understanding. So, stop, I guess. Or hell, vice versa as well, if you want. Like, if the Muslims were talking to God, we could do the same, but as far as the Lord says right now, only the Pope and the choir of saints can talk to God. So, yeah. But no, Mecca is just fine. It's just a giant black cube spinning in air because reasons. Anyway, so these are the sultanates, little green areas around here. This is the Sultanate, the Iron Sultanate, and everything else is the demons. Okay, what are they up against? This. How the fuck are we losing again? Okay, if I was playing Europa Universalis, all right, I would not be picking Hell. I would be picking Hell as a challenge run. This is the kind of map where your ass gets annexed on the starting fucking year. The forces of Hell are not merely outnumbered, they are annihilatingly, crushingly surrounded on every single fucking side by an innumerable foe that outnumbers them at this point probably 10 to 1. In all due likelihood, the Christians could simply line up and walk over the Hell-controlled areas. Not to mention the little Avignon, that tiny fucking Gibraltar. How the fuck is Gibraltar holding out? Not to mention the Balkans. They're literally surrounded on all sides by an infinite sea of batshit insane Christian soldiers that know God is literally real, and they're being invaded by demons from hell. Why the fuck is this war not over already? Why is this war still going on? I don't... And to make it worse as well, to make it even worse, let's assume, right, that, you know, from the Hellgate, which is located right here, there just floods such an unfathomable amount of weapons and armor, etc., right, that it can support virtually any war whatsoever. They don't need factories, they just shit floods out of the Hellgate. Okay, how the fuck does shit get from here to here? Or to here? Or to here, for that matter? I want to point out, in the sea, all of this is Christian territory. Like, the entirety of the sea, in essence, is one enormous Christian pond, right? You've got all of the islands still under Christian rule. You've got, of course, you know, airbase, Sicily, the entirety of Italy, Sardinia, Numidia, the entire coast of Africa on this side, plus Spain, plus Greece. Any supply convoys trying to get over here would get sunk before it got a third of the way, for fuck's sake. It has to pass through, like, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 unsinkable aircraft carriers, ignoring the land territory itself, before it can resupply Gibraltar. Okay. Right, but maybe, like, they don't have a sufficient air power in this universe, right? Maybe they're just sailing there, and it's only naval battles, and the heretics do have submarines, right? So maybe they've got, like, control over the sea. Okay, fair enough. This is an era in which we have fucking jet fighters. We have jet fighters in this era. We have fucking jets. In 1914. Jet fighters. And yet again, I ask the question, how the fuck any ship so much as leaves Jerusalem? Okay, so maybe the demons. Maybe the demons have jet fighters too. All right, let's assume the demons have jet fighters too, right? In which case, you can probably escort some stuff. You can probably escort along here. You know, you got bases in this area. This can be used to escort. You might have initial here, some potential to cover like this area, but this entire place is just fucked. Like, Gibraltar's fucked. Gibraltar cannot hold out unless they're getting mass resupplies from around Africa that come up over here, in which case it's going to need to travel past, yet again, God only knows how many thousands of kilometers of Christian-held territory. And this is, again, assuming the Christian navies are doing fucking nothing.
You ignorant slut.
Now, supposedly as well, the heretics rule the sea. That's another part of the law that just doesn't actually make a whole lot of goddamn sense. The the heretics managed to rule the sea with enormous navies that dominate the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, supposedly. Where do they build these fucking ships? Shrug. Shrug, again, is pretty much my only answer. It's got to be down south somewhere, right? Along the coast of the Middle East. But then you've also got, Mecca thing there sitting. And supposedly the kingdom of Ethiopia is still alive. Africa is still Christian as well, by the way. So there's not that much space for shipyards anywhere here. I mean, if they're trying to build ships here, they're within bombing distance of, a third of the Christian world. That ain't really going to work out. How are you going to have a massive dry dock shipyard capable of producing dreadnoughts, which take 2, 3, 4 years to build, within strike range of half the Christian fucking world? Why aren't we bombing these? Why? Help me. So there's no... And even if they are building them here, again, they're gonna have to drag their fag fat dumb asses through this entire area and then filter out through Gibraltar to get into the Atlantic. I mean, surely this is the reason why the heretics build submarines, right? Because they don't have dominance over the sea. Any conventional naval force in this scenario would be fucked into the dirt before it could even see Gibraltar, much less exit it. So that's why they build submarines. All right. That's fair enough. Submarines are much smaller, can be built much faster, and in much smaller yards. It's absolutely possible that they have submarine yards in, for example, Egypt, existing in large fortified bunker complexes, proof against the majority of ordnance, right? And since they require relatively small space to store and to build, you could then slip them quietly out of the Mediterranean, moving primarily at night and then slipping through Gibraltar. Okay. This could even potentially open up a supply situation if you've got large enough submarines. Now, submarines are not really designed for transporting cargo for obvious reasons. So they'd need to be some absolutely absurdly massive submarines, and unbelievably easy to detect submarines as well, as even the most basic sonar would have a hull the size of a fucking sunken merchant vessel to bounce off of. Not ideal, but it sure as hell makes a lot more sense than just regular merchant shipping somehow making its way across here. And yet, they still apparently... Again, I feel like they came up with submarines just because, the Germans had submarines, and the Germans were evil, thus, hell must have submarines, because hell is evil too. But they don't need submarines. If they dominate the sea as you claim, they don't need submarines. If anything, it should be Christendom using submarines, surely. I mean, if anything, the people on the back foot here should be the Christians, using submarines to raid the supply traffic that is going virtually unopposed, other than air assets, one assumes, from the Hellgate to Gibraltar and to the Baltics, right? Or Baltics, backwards ass place. But you can't have that because you haven't thought about your setting for 5 fucking minutes. And even then, submarines are not very good. Even in 1914, with the absolute bare minimum of things like sonar and depth charges, submarines already proved themselves to not be particularly effective. To the point where the Germans barely got any use out of their subs during the First World War, because they were largely quite primitive. I also don't see why, apparently, the submarines were developed in cooperation with Hell. Hell has a lot of oceans, does it? Hell has a lot of experience in submarine warfare? Why? Why does Hell have a lot of experience in submarine warfare? No, seriously, why? You're gonna have to explain to me why the demon smiths of the Seventh Circle popped up in Jerusalem and went listen, boat that goes underwater. What? All right. Again, like, it would make, unironic, more sense for the Christians to use submarines, or alternatively, sea demons. Okay? So, a part of the lore, which, again, is somewhat all over the place, but as this is based on Abrahamic religion, if an actual demon, a proper demon, ever enters Earth, that's it. It's all over, everybody dies, it's doomsday, shit's hit the fan. Because that is the moment that hell breaks the covenant? The treaties? The pact between heaven and earth and hell. You know? Once that happened, God throws everything to the winds, invades with angels, armies of angels. It's doomsday. It's all over. But they can send partially mortal servants. So, okay, you've got flesh crafters. You've already got arts of giant demon monstrosities made up of, like, human body parts. Okay. Make that. Literal sea serpents. Why not actual unironic sea serpents? Monsters that lurk beneath the wave, attacking merchant shipping. Krakens. Every one of which is unique and carved together. Like, because in that case, you could justify having just massive breeding pits on the shores, where you can bomb them, sure, and you can destroy most of them before they're even hatched or birthed. But they're easy to make. It's just flesh pits. And apparently flesh is one of the resources that hell has in absolute abundance. That would make sense again, but once more, this isn't a setting that anybody's thought about for more than 5 seconds straight. Before I lose track as well. Sir Barastian, I'd rather reboot the Tannhauser game than do Trench Crusade. Or fuck, Hellgate London. You know, Hellgate London was kind of cool. Why are you hating? What about Asia or the Americas? Do they not exist? They do. We know that the Americas is at least partially and probably majoritively free of demons, because the Americas somehow, yet again, trade with New Antioch. I don't know how. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But somehow, the New World, still under control of the Aztecs and the Mayans, etc., whom apparently were very resistant to demon cults, despite their entire civilization being based on blood sacrifice, etc., have developed transatlantic capabilities and are trading with New Antioch for reasons. I'm not sure what's in New Antioch that's so fucking valuable. But, yeah, no, that's apparently a thing. As for Asia, well, the Golden Carnate is up here. So Asia, too, is presumably mostly okay, it seems like. Africa, too, is mostly okay, which is, again, retarded. But apparently there's the Empire of Ethiopia, which is able to resist, again, the unstoppable, unending demonic hordes of hell. Ethiopia, armed with nothing more than cowhide shields and spears, have been able to halt hell. Because why the fuck not? The Sub Viking, Arch, you damn Swedish immigrant, you forgot to add my €50 donation to Scorn. Oh, did I? Oh no, I just haven't updated yet. It is there, I haven't updated it yet. I'm pretty sure. Let me just check Scorn right now. Scorn is at 500. I think so. I believe so. Robleg63, Horizon 4 has taught me that hell is in a losing situation here. I would be restarting my campaign at this point or command scripting my way to victory. Yes. Mad Cat Dan, give hell some more powerful nations like France, Prussia, Russia, Germany, and England that have hell take control of Jerusalem, Rome, and Mecca. Okay, so let's then talk about how this should look like, right? because this doesn't work. Let's take the Faithful off the map for a moment, and let's go back to just Hell. So this is Hell as it stands right now. That's all Hell has. That's it. For 900 years, this is all Hell has managed to conquer. And even then, this is only like occasional conquest. What Hell should be is more like this. This should be Hell. All right? This is more like it. Ignore the top part because it's retarded. Ignore, that's dumb. Hell should obviously have broken out of Turkey at this point, by far. Like, they're deep into the Balkan. It's over, right? Keep a sliver of Greece, just because you do have heavy-duty mountain ranges here that could probably keep them safe, and that allows you to have dumbass hoplites in the future. Okay, fair enough. But they would absolutely take vast swaths of Russia, Hungary, Poland. Keep Prussia because cool aesthetic. Keep most of France because cool aesthetic. Ignore Avignon because retarded. And basically make it like the expanse of the Moorish Empire. You can keep like Numidia just because for flavor reasons more so than anything, right? Because you want the African kingdoms with kind of a Carthaginian flair. I'm all for it. And then they're protected primarily by just vast expanses of sand and inhospitable desert, plus massive reinforcements flowing in from Sardinia and Sicily, right? And then give them easily half of Spain and Portugal. Like, France should be fighting a two-front war at this point, whereas the many little German principalities are desperately holding on for dear life to defend themselves, whereas France is fighting in Spain, and they're fighting as this main thrust into Germany here. Russia, too, just desperately allying with the Golden Khanate, allying with anyone they can to try and halt the hordes of Hell in the vast inhospitable tracts of Russia. Kind of trapping them in the swampy area around the Chernobyl region, right about here, right? And if the heretics do indeed have naval dominance, give them Ireland. Give them fucking Ireland. Ireland always been a hellhole for England. Make it England's goddamn ulcer in this game as well, so that England doesn't even have an easy way to reinforce either. It's got to wage constant war against heretical raids up and down the coast going on constantly, without the ability to launch a proper invasion. Like, this should be England's battlefield. Ireland right there. Spain has a battlefield, France has a battlefield, Germany has a battlefield, England has a battlefield, Africa gets to have a battlefield too. Russia gets one. All of this is fine. Norway, Sweden, Finland can just come down and fight here. No problems whatsoever. Hell also is given all of Africa. All of it. Every last fucking bit of it. 100% of Africa. Because there is no way anything in Africa stops Hell. No fucking way. At the point where the demon gates break open, at the height of the Crusade, Europe is wearing partial plate armor at that point. The Muslims have at least figured out, like, splint mail, etc. Africa, cowhide shields and stone spears. Straight up. Cowhide shields and stone spears. Virtually no infrastructure whatsoever. Very little major civilization centers. Very little alliances between the various pacts, a very sparse overall population compared to, like, the density of Europe, which already numbers in the millions and the millions and the millions. Africa's just overrun. It don't stand a fucking chance. And that would actually give Hell the manpower and the area that they need to support themselves. Because what this map of Hell also fails so brutally to do is provide Hell with any source of materiel other than the Hellgate. So, what have they got? They've got mostly desert. They've got the fertile Nile Valley. That's nice. Desert. Mountains. And completely isolated regions. This is not going to be supporting a very large population. Especially not with medieval agricultural techniques. Hell's population is going to, or the hellish area's population is going to be tiny. They claimed originally that 1/3 of humanity fell to Hell's power, which is, I mean, look at it, that's retarded. It's more like probably, what, 1/10 at that, at the time where it originally started. At this point, like, Germany has a population of, I think, 40 million people, or was it 20? 20 million people at, like, the Crusades era. France, another, like, 20 million people. This entire region has maybe 20, 30, like, compared to Europe. Retarded. They won't be able to sustain any kind of a large-scale army. What's worse is, every single mortal soldier of Hell needs to undergo the trial of the Gate of Hell. They need to travel to the gate within eyesight of the gate. That is the only way you can be inducted into the Heretic Legions and become a soldier of Hell, by seeing the Gate of Hell. Now, the problem with that is, the lore describes as approaching the Gate of Hell as just suicide. You just die. Before you even see the damn thing, the skin will be scorched from your bones. That's why Christendom can't attack it, because it is literally the gate to fucking hell. That's why. Now, it also says that only, like, the most evil are basically immune to it. So, you're talking about the craziest, most brutal, most habitually evil, broken people in society. Only they can approach it within sight of the gates of hell.
Trick or treat.
That is the entire the recruitment base of the mortal followers of hell, is the populace living in these scant areas that are so utterly mind-fuckingly evil that hell itself recognizes them.
The answer.
They're not merely outnumbered at this point. Like, hell is not the Horde faction here. Hell should, if anything, be like the Chaos Astartes, a hilariously outnumbered handful of individuals that have their only advantage is centuries of experience against an Imperium that outnumbers them 1,000,000,000. That's Hell's position in this reality right here. And even worse, of course, the actual Hell elites need to not only see the gates of Hell, they actually need to go inside of Hell and return. We're probably talking recruitment numbers in the, what, hundreds of thousands, if you're lucky, for just the basic foot soldiers. A few hundred, maybe a few thousand for the elites. I mean, these motherfuckers are facing armies measuring in the millions with 100,000 guys. Why? And the worst part is, too, they could simply just have said, yeah, Hell recruits armies like normal. Because why not? Why wouldn't Hell just look at everyone who's like, can I fight for you? And go like, yeah, sure, here, have a rifle. It makes no sense, especially if you want Hell to be an overwhelming threat. And again, remember, demons can't enter Earth. Otherwise, you violate the Covenant, and God simply descends on your ass with 1,000,000,000,000 angels. So, no demons. All they've got is mortal followers and half-demons that are people... essentially things with a mortal soul, but with demonic essence in them. They can also pass beyond the portal. And even then, only in specific areas as well, it seems like. And then you come to yet another problem, of course, which is the fact that the hellish cities are described briefly in the lore as just huge evil places where people are killed constantly for no reason. You know, sacrificial pits where thousands are sacrificed every day for the glory of the evil gods, markets where they sell human flesh by the pound, they've got ritualistic suicide areas. The cities of hell or not even hell, the human cities of hell, are actively eradicating their own population. This is so dumb. Sounds like Canada. A little bit. They've got an abundance of Canadian healthcare. And yet, despite all of this, Christendom just can't attack and kill them for some reason. For some fucking reason. And again, bearing in mind, let us assume for a moment, let's just ignore the entire problem with humans, shall we? The need for food, water, and shelter, right? Let's ignore that. Let's just assume, for some absurd reason, that the entire populace of hell, of the hellish cities on Earth, despite having an equivalent technological level to the rest of the world, are just Stone Age barbarians that can survive off raw meat and drinking blood and, sleeping out in the rain. Let's assume that. If they're fucking non-stop, 24/7, in enormous fucking orgies fueled by demon cum, right? It still takes at least 14 years, to preferably 16 to 18 years, to raise a single fighting age male. Even assuming the entire population is going all out on this shit, they're still not even going to stand a chance to compare to the reproductive rates of just regular Europe at that point. Never mind a Europe that would undoubtedly have instituted rewards for breeding at this point, as we saw in many fascist countries, for example, where mothers who had multiple sons were given rewards and extra pensions and so on. There is no way, in literal or figurative hell, that these regions can hold off a vastly numerical and territorially superior enemy. Now, at least if you gave hell its proper borders and gave them the entirety of Africa, you would solve this problem. Now you have all of Africa with which to grow food. You have all of Africa to source water from. You have all of Africa to draw people from. Even if you do the idiot thing that they need to travel to the gates of hell, at least now you have the sheer area required to maintain and create a population of a size that might be able to pass those recruiting standards on a level mildly comparable to the rest of Europe. And the biggest issue is, it fails to make hell seem like a threat. Okay, that's going to be my next rant before I, again, fall off too much. Odra Noel Zentirium. My minutes are on the way, but every day regret sets. I don't know how I oversaw all this and them. Oh, it's very simple. Like, the primary reason behind Trench Crusade's success is because the art. People saw the art, and as I started my opening rant, people will see cool art like this and be like, oh my god, that's really cool. They've got like churches and stuff. I wish they would turn off that stupid little window thing. They've got like churches and pillboxes and all, this looks really awesome. And then you begin making up your own lore for it. Like, this is obviously, like, this is in Europe and it's World War I and there's trenches all over the place and they're fighting like the evil Germans and Nazi hordes of demons and they've got enormous tanks and shit. And reality is, actually hell is fucking tiny and most of Europe is literally just fine. Which is slightly weird, but oh fucking well.
Can I smell your feet?
Oh well, indeed. That's why people were tricked in by the aesthetic, and I will use the word tricked here as well. As I was going to point out, this thing has come out about a day or so ago, and I'm kind of hoping that somebody will have access to the rest of these. So, from what I've been told, this is Trench Crusade's presentation at Adepticon, Adepticon, where there's this one slide. Mistake number 3, piss off some huge influencers. Many extremist influencers were attacked at the project thinking it was about endorsing their views. I mean, if by my views you mean in the case of literal bumfuck you to death, merciless, violent, genocidal hell is real and is invading Earth, and in this world, God himself is also real, and the only thing that stands between mankind and utter sodomization genocide, then yeah, God is good. That is the entirety of the views expressed by anyone. In the case where God is the only salvation against the hordes of hell, God's the good guy? And they're saying that, oh, that's not your views, sir. Isn't it? Do you have an opposing viewpoint you'd like to present? What is it? Because it's got to be pretty fucking spicy at that point. It's so goddamn idiotic. But the reason for this, and I want to point out as well, there we go. Yeah, that's the one. Their preferred follower base are, of course, also the ones that immediately then reacted by saying that this map is racist, that the map itself is xenophobic because all of the bad guy areas are in the brown areas. And even again, as I pointed out, went so far as, what was it here? Where's the one where she calls them literally evil? No, I can't find it now. But it's in the video I did on it, where they call them literally evil. This is the audience that they want. This is the audience whose views they do endorse. This is the view that aligns with Trench Crusade. That their setting is literally evil, racist, and xenophobic. Yeah, and the reason why they think this is because they're partisans, okay? This dude here has never thought outside of a leftist worldview. He is incapable of doing so. He simply defines goodness as left-wing. That's all. That is the entirety of his worldview. Left good, everything not left bad. And this, not particularly subtle dichotomy, leaves no room whatsoever for understanding any position that is not left. And thus, no matter how absurd the situation is, like in this case, no, God is actually good because he's protecting us from the rape demons, they have to assume the opposite position. They have to find some way to mental gymnastic their way around opposing who they perceive to be their enemy, for no other reason than because the people they perceive to be their enemy is for it. That is what an ideologically captured mindset does to you. In fact, let me find that little fat Canadian here. You may have strong opinions on Devaroodle, and I understand and sympathize with quite a few of them. However, he did do a video, this one here, explaining this very phenomenon. I covered this too. This was from the Real Game Awards, where a person's they-them's game, was Nightmare Card or something, won an award for best karting game. They then came out on social media and went like, I'm so glad for winning the Anti-Woke Game Awards for best karting game. I'm really glad you're putting trans representation first and foremost. And Craig was just like, okay, dude, congratulations with your award. And moved on. Which made this person incredibly upset. It made them angry. Suddenly, they were no longer irreverent, taking the piss, hoping to get a reaction, because Craig's not a far right-winger. Instead, they were, oh my god, you must rescind the award now. I don't accept. The entire reason for this is because this person is ideologically captured. They view anyone not on their side to be the enemy. They must, by definition, align themselves in opposition to anyone they view to be their enemy, no matter how ridiculous it seems. Even if your opposite is just a dude making a games award show. That is exactly what happens with Trench Crusade. Now they then go, we kicked them out with a vengeance. They didn't. They closed their Discord because they couldn't moderate. They then fled screaming to the hills, went silent for like a month, hiding, and then they quietly reopened their Discord. Then they stopped using their Twitter accounts and fled to Blue Sky, where they could get into a bigger hug box. This is some of the biggest, fakest internet tough guy shit I think I have ever seen. It's genuinely hilarious. And of course, even to this day, their Discord has not regained a portion of the activity it had when it actually brought in everybody. Their Blue Sky account still stands like 9,000 people compared to the 60+ thousand people they had on Twitter. The only reason why they had a successful Kickstarter, which they did, a very successful Kickstarter, mind you, is because nobody knew who these people were. They didn't know that they were crazy wokeists or culture warriors. And so they simply bought what they thought was a cool setting. Now, the problem with this is, I'm pretty sure that'll probably be their only successful Kickstarter, especially considering that their current audience is busy calling them racists, but... well, we'll see indeed. Perhaps there is enough of an audience out there who literally don't know what's going on. Maybe they have actually managed to finally tap into that wider audience. We'll see. Call me cross. Whatever happened to that co-op Rogue Trader playthrough doing the VTuber? Is that ever coming back? Curry and horror game, I suppose. It is. The VTuber in question is finally beginning to get their life settled back down, so that will resume at some point, but, you know, life. Taras Shemenko, the whole heretics control the water plot point could be resolved if explained by the horned beast coming out of the sea, whose heads bear the name of blasphemy. Oh yeah, absolutely. If you simply did monsters, I would be way more open for it. Plus, that would be a cool setting. That would actually be interesting, where traditional ships, dreadnoughts, destroyers, cruisers, frigates, etc., are fighting like sea monsters. That would be cool. Lord Cybercat, American here. Where the frig is the US in all of this? It's Aztec. You're just Aztecs now, bro. Skicky, it's been around for 7 months. Thank you very much, sir. Rip and tear it a few new ones, you Swede. The setting makes no sense when laid out in the earlier video. It doesn't. It really does not. The real Zartag, look at Turnip 28 instead. I have been peeking at it. I haven't really looked into it, but it does look interesting. Walter 1066, Africa and Asia is the spawning pits of hell. That's what I hope it is, but again, we know that the Ethiopian Empire is a thing. We know that Abyssinia is a thing. So basically, hell's pretty much been cock-blocked just south of the Middle East, so they don't even have much of Africa. Joshua Sevlin. The timeline map would make more sense if the humans had pushed hell back through the gate and retaken Jerusalem multiple times, but couldn't close the gate. Periods of intense war and periods of infighting and innovation. That's true. It would actually make sense, quite a bit more sense, if the Christianity had basically, if this was like a war of ebbs and flows, right? Where like every 100 years or so, Christianity pushes in and begins retaking stuff, using their huge numerical superiority to crack down on the demons. That makes sense. And then, being unable to close the gate, because it's a literal gate to hell, and being unable to approach or invade hell, they're inevitably pushed back eventually. That way, you could have sort of like a Myth Soulblighter style setting, where every 100 years or so, the gate to hell flares, and massive demonic incursions pop out, and there's huge, enormous, titanic battles around the gates that can last for like months and years. But usually hell wins through and begins pushing out, which pushes Christianity to a dangerous point until they too begin slowly recovering and pushing back. A war of ebbs and flows. Instead of hell achieving absolutely nothing and then being stuck for 900 years. Draken, Poland in deep shit as always. Nothing new. It's true. Nolly, hey there, Arch. Sorry if I missed anything. I was enjoying my birthday yesterday. Oh, congratulations, sir. Had a nice dinner, and sorry, what? Trench Crusade? Why is this map wrong, Arch? They think the demons correct? The good guys are losing. Well, I wish they were losing. I mean, this doesn't look like a we're losing map. It's kind of my primary contention with the entire setting. The fact that they make it sound very desperate, and yet they look pretty damn comfortable, largely. Wizardman Arch, you need to study history a little bit more. Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian kingdoms in the world. They were Christian before Sweden. Oh, I'm not saying they were Christian. They are Christian, absolutely, but I'm saying they wouldn't stand a chance against fucking hell because they didn't have European weapons. They certainly didn't have trade routes to Europe capable of sustaining those weapons either. Especially as, again, most of this would have been Islamic lands at the point. They basically wouldn't be able to defend themselves, as it doesn't seem like prayer really does much in this universe. Disco Wonderman. It would make sense for places to resist if said regions would invoke their own mythology and gods. Eldritch thieves to fight the demons, but I doubt that is that deep. Not really. So, they do kind of a little bit of it, which is... Alright, so, let me show you like a little bit of the Iron Sultanate thing. So the Iron Sultanate are the Islamist faction, basically. And what's kind of weird, too, is they're kind of, I don't know how to put it, like, almost like a demonic, almost, faction? Like, they've got stuff like this, for example. Alchemists. Okay. Alchemists fire. That makes sense. That's kind of like a Middle Eastern thing, right? They've got soulless homunculuses, who canonically are described as constantly being deeply upset and in pain, knowing that they are artificial creations and have no soul. That they are always beyond the touch of God, basically. All right. That makes them pretty evil, but... fair enough. And they also make demon things like these, which almost look more demonic than the forces of fucking hell. Like, okay. I'm seeing now where the racist accusations are coming from. Not to mention, you would think that Islam would have a deep-set crisis of faith going on right now, as the Christians can confidently state that they are talking to God, whilst the Islamists aren't. I feel like that would kick off one fuck of a schism within Islam, but hey, details. And the things like, they really should have more of the mysticism on the good guy side. Like, there should be ways for, like, the only way that Africa could possibly resist hell is if the power of holy objects and prayers would somehow be utterly immickable to evil. Like, the Ethiopians could go to war basically with spears and shields and drive off evil by the protection of God, in essence. That would be a little bit weird, because then you'd ask the question, why can't the rest of Christendom do that? But at least it would be our explanation. Landslock 652, you have to see the Hellgate. That's dumb. Why isn't it like Chaos Corruption in 40k? I don't know.
Heresy's the question.
It's rare for me to defend 40k Chaos as being more logically consistent, but in this case it really is. No, really, just say in the Hell lore captures and corrupts human souls to fight for hell. Boom, done. Come guys, D&D figured this out already. Yeah, no. Unironically, straight up, all they needed to do was say that, oh yeah, no, anyone can fight for hell. In fact, the only way to avoid brutal, horrific oppression is to fight for hell. Simple as. Like, why would you volunteer to become a soldier of hell? Okay, well, if you do, your family won't be fucked to death by demons. There you go. You get given special privileges. There you are. All the recruits you could ever want. The real attacks. That could actually be kind of cool. It makes sense if those rituals fed the essence of the kill to the other mortals, turn them into half demons or something, creating more armies and reducing supply requirement. Yeah, no, they should absolutely be relying more on basically flesh beasts. JD is the new gold standard. I get multiple fronts, but I feel like the front inside Christendom would immediately cause Crusade-tier invasions to e.g. Balkans. I was under the impression the whole world was a war front. No pockets. Same. Like, when I first heard about this setting, I was assuming that it would be like this. That there would be war fronts all over the place, right? Instead of just the redder regions, there'd be battles in Spain, there'd be battles in France and Germany, there'd be front lines in England, there'd be combat going on everywhere as Christendom is utterly besieged on every side by unending hordes of demonic entities. That was what the lore sounded like to me, not, the world is overwhelmingly Christian and this is just a less successful Moorish invasion. Next one. What's fresh hell has French Crusade done this time? Oh, we're just complaining about the dumbass map. Next one. Yes, I called the Trench Crusade French. Disappointed. As should we all be. Turkroach on Streamlabs. Shalom, Arch. This is a quick info. The first half of the Decay episode, 3A of the Coffin of Andy and Lele, got released. No April Fools, by the way. You know what this means. Another fun stream with lots of Wincest donations. We will be doing that. We will be doing that. Marksman 117B. This map also offends me. It does not represent the type of world or aesthetic they have shown. They made Trench Crusade an undeniable joke with this map. Oh. And then there's the aesthetic as well. So, what you need to do to create a proper alternative world is to ask yourself the question, what would happen if demons invaded in the Crusades? Okay.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Would the world look like this? No, almost certainly not. Because they've tried to take the map of modern day, with France's current borders, with Spain's current border, with Portugal's current borders, etc., and slap on a medieval aesthetic to it, in essence. And then also add in little shields. And also, this is supposed to be the high-res map, by the way.
I have lost. Shit.
Me and Trench Crusade devs have a very different definition of high-res, as this gets pixeled, even as you zoom in slightly. But you can obviously see that the Holy Roman Empire, or just Germany, is divided into tons of tiny little states. This is obviously incredibly inefficient, and not at all how this would be done. If anything, all of it would be united on the seat of St. Peter at this point. And any independence would be largely theoretical. Like, you would have local dukes. You wouldn't have Lithuania, or England, or France. You would have the Teutonic Knights, literally. You would have the Knights Templars. You would have the Knights Hospitaller. You would have the Knights of the Lion in England. You'd have the Knights of the Eagle and so on. If anything, it would simply just be dozens of knightly orders where their nationality is little more than a part of their crests and their military insignia. As I very much so doubt France is going to be operating as a specific state during all of this. It makes no sense. It would be far more sensible for a world under threat by literal demons to unify as much as humanly possible in the facing of that threat. And to do so, you wouldn't have people speaking Hungarian, German, French, Spanish, English, Swedish, Norwegian, Finnish, etc. You would want to get rid of as much of these borders as humanly possible, as in this case, borders are actually bad. You're fighting hell! You've got to unify. And if you don't, all of this will simply just be an Austro-Hungary style situation, where there will be no opportunity to cooperate effectively, and Christendom would be riven by internal discord, which is a possibility, but again, the issue is, internal discord occurs primarily when there is dispute, when people have too much freedom, or time, basically. When you have an existential threat, you don't get internal discord, you get external unity. Nobody in Hungary is going to quibble with Lithuania over a border matter when Satan is sitting at the Dardanelles Straits. It just ain't gonna happen. Not to mention, again, in a world where the Pope can phone God, there's no reason why any of the nations should disagree with anything they say whatsoever. It'd be ridiculous. So they'd obviously all be speaking like Latin, like the chat says. Yes, Latin. They're speaking Latin as a unified language. They'd probably all be under more or less unified leadership of the church. And distinctions of nations would be largely non-existent. Instead, they would be just knightly orders. And then there'd be basically administrative districts, which then might lend elements of that area's history. And it probably wouldn't be the history that is currently. It would be the history of saints. It would be the history of heroes of the Crusades, okay? You would be venerating these far more so than England venerating the three lions, for example, which represents their great kings. You wouldn't have Ireland venerating the Ira, the harp. You wouldn't have Wales or Scotland being the kingdoms that they are now, for very obvious reasons. In the same way that you have the Teutonic orders taking up the Estonia, Estonia, etc. Because these are areas better used by knightly orders to draw recruits from rather than nations. Notice that Lithuania apparently didn't object to the Teutonic Knights taking up parts of their territory either. It is silly. It is the minimum amount of... Well, that's not silly. It's the minimum amount of effort. It's let's just take a map of Europe and then have hell appear. Like, okay, if hell appeared 50 years ago, I'd agree with you. But this isn't 50 years ago. This is hell after almost 8,000 years. Like, what is it, 800, 900 years? Shit would have changed. JD's new gold standard. Also, should Islam still exist? Literally God, etc.? You know, we already touched upon this, but it shouldn't. It obviously shouldn't. There's no way Islam should still exist. For the simple reason that Christianity and Islam, they worship the same God, in essence. It's just God. It's disagreements over prophets, basically. That's the main issue. So the moment that the Pope can phone God, he should just invite the Sultan to come on over and talk to God. There you go. Or vice versa. If the Sultan starts talking to God, the Pope comes on over and goes like, oh, shit. Right, okay then, we're Muslim now. Done. Not to mention, even if Islam gets their magical bullshit wall, right, to defend themselves, surely they should be experiencing an enormous schism of faith. They should be experiencing a huge crisis of faith. Hold on. What do you mean? What do you mean the Christians are speaking to God? What does that mean? What does that mean for us? Were we wrong? What do you mean they've created Meta Christ and he's the only one who can enter hell because he's protected by the power of God? Like, they should be freaking the fuck out. They should be looking at their own alchemical constructions that are as monstrosities without the spark of God and be, wow, we're the bad guys. We were always the bad guys. It's stupid. Now, because again, it's the same God. It is the same God. It's a quibble over scripture and prophecies and prophets. That's the main dividing line here.
Trick or treat.
Now, in the setting, they are kind of unified, as in they're not fighting each other. There can be skirmishes between the two for minor disagreements here and there, which is fair enough, of course. But they're primarily just fighting hell, which makes the position of hell here even worse. So, if we again assume that the majority of resources that hell needs comes from the gates near Jerusalem, all right, fair enough. But that also means that all you would need to turn all of the rest of hell's holding utterly and completely irrelevant is to again send a fucking carrier pigeon to the Sultanate in Baghdad and go, right, we're going to send everything we've got to Antioch. You send everything you've got to Aleppo and New Damascus, and let's just fucking crush this area. Let's just reconquer all of this, set up a cordon around the Hell Gate, because we know demons can't come out of it. There's only human followers. And we're done. Dunzo. The rest of the world will just ripen and die as they lose access to Hell's mineral resources. They'll be unable to make new guns. They'll be unable to make new artillery. They'll be unable to make new ships. We can just crush them at our leisure.
Trick or treat. Can I smell your feet?
And it wouldn't even be difficult. The Iron Wall is unbreakable. You've got basically a direct connection here between Christendom and Aleppo. There's only the tiniest area of no man's land separating the two. There'd be no problems unifying this. And then you've got an impenetrable bastion of New Damascus through which you can launch as many fucking attacks you need to turn the entirety of the demon domain into one fucking gate. And then the demons will just have to cope and seethe, I guess, as they're back to square one. Dumb. The Sultanate, to be fair, I think it's a stretch to call God the good guy when he has the power to step in and instantly end the whole thing, but he's certainly not the bad guy, a manipulative bastard at worst. Well, that's the thing. God cannot interfere overtly directly. Because if he does, then the covenant breaks and it's doomsday. Then hell and heaven throws all caution to the wind and just invade one another. Now, there have been minor violations here and there of miracles and stuff. The demons aid their followers when they can. God aids his followers where he can. And probably the person who came the closest to breaking the covenant is probably God. As it is written in the law that there was a city called Argos in this world. Now, Argos is a bit of a name. So exactly where that was. Now, it is normally, a city in Greece, right? And he simply says that God reached down and Argos was no more. Just gone. Okay? Why? Maybe he took them all to heaven to make them into angels. Possibly. Or maybe it was invaded by demons and he went like, nah, stop that. And simply just wiped the entire fucking city off the map. So that's possible too. But they can't interfere directly. Like angels, I don't think there's been any mentions of angels fighting directly, but they're probably going to fight behind the scenes, you know, in between heaven and hell and so on. Youngson 2, shouldn't hell first move have been to boil the Mediterranean? Curry fun. Also, Arch Sacrifice plays through. Price, tell me. I'll probably do Sacrifice for free, but when I have time for it. Otherwise, like, what?
Trick or treat.
Like, you could force me to expedite it for like, what, 500 maybe? But I wouldn't do that if I were you, because I'll play it eventually, regardless. Because I love Sacrifice. And now, boiling the Mediterranean is a good idea as well. Okay, so what is the reasons? Let's assume the setting's own idea, right? The setting's idea, despite what you're currently seeing on the map, is that hell is incredibly dangerous and Christianity is only barely holding on, right? Why hasn't hell just won in that case? Well, it's because of several reasons. One, well, you see, the demons are infighting. Really? They're infighting. But the war on Earth is done near exclusively by their human followers. Human followers that the overwhelming majority of which, like 99%, can't enter hell. Why do they care? Why would they give a shit? Why aren't they just fighting in hell like normal? It's not like they can send reinforcements either, so what sense does this make? And he goes, oh, but you see, the demons don't really care as well. That's why they don't do it. Like, they're squabbling and they don't really care. Which one is it? Well, both. Okay, so the demons care enough to wage endless war against each other in hell, but they're not really too concerned with this whole invading Earth thing. Yeah. Okay, why are they waging wars in hell? Oh, to decide who gets to invade Earth. Kill me. Fucking kill me. It's an excuse that sounds good, but makes no sense once you actually look at it. And the excuse is simply to make hell another Eye of Terror. That's all it is. It's like, why isn't the Eye of Terror expanding? Why isn't the legions of chaos rallying out of the Eye of Terror? It's because they're infighting. But in the case of the Eye of Terror, it actually makes sense because the majority of the people in the Eye of Terror are its mortal servants squabbling. The people who do give a shit about land, about territory, about influence, about profit, about leadership. They do give a shit, but the demons don't. The only reason why chaos doesn't sally forth is because they haven't managed to get a leader. Whenever they do happen upon a leader, which is always fucking Failvedon for some retarded reason, then they do sally out. So hell only exists to maintain the status quo of being, oh, hell is really dangerous, but will never actually do anything.
Fire is the answer.
It's another one of those incredibly fucking lazy, grim-dark plot contrivances. Talon Hayabusa, this is why woke entertainment sucks. They can't make cool things for offending someone. It's really sad. This could have been pretty cool. It could have been, yeah. It could have been. Magna 9, hi Art, I'm pretty sure the topless berserker woman alone would scare off the wider audience. Also, Curry Fund. We should add that to the Curry Fund. There we go. Coroner, according to the law, Hell has a powerful air force, and Hell took over the sea in 17 and early 1800 after destroying Europe's navy. Overlord. Yes, what, 300 years ago? I think we've built some boats by then. I'm pretty sure we've built some boats by then. I'm almost certain we've built lots of boats by then, in fact. And again, like, because they did mention that, the defeat of Nelson at, like, the cliffs of Britain, etc., which is kind of cool, but then you realize that was 200 years ago. and those ships wouldn't have mattered at all whatsoever because they were wooden fucking line ships. And now, of course, they're all using dreadnoughts and battleships and actual, proper warships again, so it's largely irrelevant. As for Hell's Air Force, it really doesn't matter how powerful Hell's Air Force is because of the ranges. Even if we assume that Hell has a really powerful air force and very numerous, all of its bases are over here. Anything then that has to travel from here up to here, or again, or Gibraltar, needs to pass through massively superior friendly airspace, where all of the faithful pilots will be able to take off, engage, and land again far quicker. They will have far better fuel efficiency. They will have far better spotting systems. They will have if we're assuming they've got radar, which maybe they do. Now, radar in real life was only invented in the 1930s, but experiments were already underway in the 1800s, so conceivably. The simple fact is that any aircraft coming from here is going to be at a massive disadvantage against something over here. Or hell, not even just that. Anything fighting over friendly territory is at a massive disadvantage. That's the problem. If they were going to push the whole Hell has air superiority, they should have given them these islands, but that would have cut off New Antioch, which makes that kind of pointless as well. And again, like the whole idea of Hell having naval dominance is just retarded. It's just actually unironically retarded. Selection Doppelganger. Chaos looks at demons in TC. Shakes head. They're useless. They can't even fight for us. Mercenaries 21. Ethiopia could be more of a magic faith-based thing, like, say, the angels taught them how to use their powers, keeping demons at bay, mixing faith and magic. They could. They're not. They've already mentioned in the lore that they use just rifles and shit, but I wish they'd done that. I do. As there is already a mention of Ethiopia in the lore, and they just use swords, shields, rifles. I don't know where they got those rifles from, but... Nolly, sorry if I was confusing you, Art. I meant that the devs think the good guys are losing. Why? Well, if you view all good God worship as evil, well, indeed. Rodrigo Sexios, you know what? The creator's dismissal of Christianity makes me think that the twist of the law will be that God and Satan are the same being. At least that would be a twist. That would definitely be a twist, and he's just using this to play with, I guess. Kind of cool. It would make the entire setting kind of pointless, but it needs to be kind of cool.
Service guarantees citizenship.
Oliver Nord, Asia could push back a demonkind with the power of Confucianism or communism. Or do you, China? Or you do you, China? No, thank you, host of heaven. Our faith is good enough. Atomic. Apparently, though, Islam do have contact with God since the Iron Wall was raised by Allah. Was it, I thought it was raised by some kind of magical alchemical deal or something, or some prophecy. It's been a while since I read the Iron Wall lore. Which also makes... Again, if God has the possibility to do that, why didn't he do that just around the Hellmouth? It's like, oh no, he raised it over here, when he could have just... And then God won the war. Again, the only reason why the Iron Wall was raised by, quote, Allah, is because they needed a Muslim faction. That's the only reason. Most X21. The Ethiopian Bible has over 80 books in them. Then where is the American Bible? It's only 66. Rumor is that the true Bible is 777 pages. The more of the true... Why will you have the more access you've got? Syntax. The buds are dead. Here's some shekels for Arch. God, where are the dear Jude? Dear Jude? The Juden are just dead, I presume. Or rolled into Christianity. I guess, one out of two. But what a name. Lum review Trench Crusade thing and rate their feats. She would enjoy that, wouldn't she? But what a name, everyone speaks Latin, as they should. Jonathan Borg, Sweetastic Games. The fact that God is real in this verse makes the borders even more insane. The language would be universal, Latin or Arabic, if so wish, and likely a God-approved Tower of Babel seat of power. Absolutely. Again, nobody would doubt the words of the Vatican because it comes with the seal of actual, unironic, literal God. And this is also how you prevent basically all corruption of the Vatican's upper powers, right? Because in 40k, you've got the ecclesiarchy being a corrupt, powerful entity. You've got bureaucrats being corrupt. You've got lots of corruption going on. Okay, that makes sense in a world where you're very religious, but you know, the emperor isn't going to speak to you every day or anything. In this world, the upper command structure of Christianity knows for an unavoidable fact, complete fact, that God is real. And that he is omnipotent as well. That he knows and sees everything. You're not going to turn traitor in that universe. Which, by the way, also makes the Avignon heresy all the more ridiculous. Because in Avignon, there was a jealous pontiff, a churchman, who rose up in rebellion against the Christendom. Really? Really? Why? Again, there are things in this universe...
I have lost...
let's see if I can find one of them, that can literally hear the voice of God constantly. That can see the future. You don't think they'd send a note? That they do a warning or something? Anything? Again, the Avignon thing is mostly just as a kind of like a play on the anti-pope that was actually in Avignon, which is a cool touch. I don't mind it. I like it, actually, but again, it doesn't make that much sense in the setting. Krieger, thing that occurred to me as I read the law was all the Islam faction powers come from the alchemy and engineering, the Christians from miracles and Christ clones. What did the devs mean by this? Scorn. Well, they meant that Islam isn't real. And the worst part is Islam knows it's not real. So, each one of the iron walls... Let's see if I can... Each one of the bastions of the iron wall is guarded by an enormous homunculi. I haven't had a picture of it now. But these massive, like, lion behemoth creatures, as large as the wall itself. You know, just fucking titan things. And these things are intelligent. They're smart. They're incredibly smart, in fact. They give puzzles and questions to anyone who tries to pass the gate, like sphinxes. And they manage to basically suss out heretics and demon worshippers by doing so, by asking incredibly subtle and clever questions. These things, when they aren't sussing out demon worshippers amongst the immigrants, based of them to build an anti-immigrant wall, by the way, debate the meaning of life with one another and are described as incredibly sad creatures because they know that they are not created by God, that they are manufactured by alchemy. They understand that they are artificial beings, cursed to never know God's touch. Again, you'd really think that the Islamist alchemists would be looking at this and going, what the fuck are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? What the fuck is our faith at this point? Din Fan, 219. Yeah, you would expect a map like this if demons invaded 1914 in our world, not one that's been fighting them for 800 years. Yep. Most next anyone. Sorry, 77 books, 777 books, not pages. Let's say my idea. Lancelot 652. Can someone with sense take this setting away from these idiots? It has so much potential, but it's being strangled to death by those focused on ideology. It very much so is. And again, it's based on basically a series of paintings. It's based on Mike Francina making cool-looking stuff. And it is cool-looking stuff. It's really cool-looking stuff. But the problem is, when all you do is make cool-looking paintings with no consideration as to how it works,
Heresy's the question.
you
Fire's
end
the
up with a
answer.
setting that doesn't make any sense. For example, you recognize this, chat? So this is one of the soldiers from New Antioch, right? You know what? The Red Brigade, which is a nice piece of lore. But I'm sure you can all see what this is. Now, who invented the Maxim machine gun again? Where was he born, chat? Where was the inventor of the Maxim machine gun born? Because I don't think he would have an opportunity in this universe to invent the Maxim machine gun. You know, being an American and all. Yeah.
Heresy's the question.
That's now they could have simply just like invented a completely new machine gun, or simply gone with like I don't know, a fucking more modern looking one or something, or they might even just have gone full ham and invented a completely new looking machine gun, maybe. But instead, because it's all based on drawing, you've got a guy who simply sees a Maxim and thinks, well, that's a World War I machine gun. I'm going to have my dudes have a World War I machine gun. In a world where the inventor of that particular gun would not be around, in all due likelihood. Meh. Now you could, that's a minor complaint because you could easily just say that it just looks similar, you know, and there's like, it's not actually a Maxim machine gun. Fair enough, but it's emblematic of the point that if you're just drawing to draw, you're not thinking about the universe. You're not thinking about the wider implications of what you are drawing and why. You're not thinking of, for example, the fact that if you have indeed a no man's land like this, covered in swamps, then the last thing you would ever want to be wearing is this. Because you would sink up to your fucking hips in mud immediately. This is a suit of fucking power armor that must weigh hundreds of kilos. This would be a very foolish thing to wear in a no man's land swamp. And the only reason you would wear it is if you're basically a Space Marine super soldier with the ability to struggle through the mud. And even then, it would be inconvenient, to put it mildly. Not to mention as well, if you've got suits of power armor, you know, you really should be using it for more things than just covering one dude, honestly. You should be making just walking tanks at that point.
Service guarantees citizenship.
River Norse, yep. Jews, Christians, and Muslim all worship the god of Abraham. Same dude, different sets of prophecies, sons, Messiah, whatever, and New Vegas. Yep, exactly. Which is again why the moment that one of those were proven to be absolutely and unquestionably true, the other should kind of fall in line. Nolly, I want to know the best part. There is a section called the Church of Metamorphosis that basically chaos mutations. Hey Habib, if the Christians are powered by God, who's giving us our powers to create life? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, indeed. Uh-oh, indeed. Anonymous or Streamlabs, sounds like they could have benefited from the diversity of Muslim team members. Hell should have copped the caliphate, and true Muslims should have been staunch allies. Make it a themed Christian went too far to win. Yeah, you could have done that. Honestly, I would have just had like a portion of Islam just outright side with hell, basically, and then had rebels within Islam fighting for the Christians in order to kind of redeem themselves as like janissaries almost, kind of. That could be cool too. Ezekiel, Instead of the war, the Iron Sultanate should be pushed back to the Zagros Mountains, giving Hell the cradle of civilization. Yep, that would work too. By the way, all mine to Hearts of Iron Enclave 57. All in all, thank you for summarizing, sir. I will add that to the Enclave. Where's Enclave? There it is. Okay, so that's only $80 away from being finished then. I gotta get going on thumbnails for these two. JD's new gold standard. The Paladins are cool, but rip off Primarchs. Kind of. See, I kind of like the idea of the Paladins. So,
You ignorant slut.
So, the Paladins. The Paladins is part of the Meta Christ project, which in and of itself is mildly ridiculous because I don't really care how desperate Christianity has become. Cloning Christ would be a very bad idea. Would be a very, very bad idea.
The answer.
On every single solitary level. Oh, and by the way, they also made Christ a woman. I don't know how they did that. But Christ is a woman in this universe as well, as each one of the Paladins is assigned to one of the circles of hell. And I think this was the Paladin of the 7th circle or something. And it's got really weird armor style, or Jesus is a chick in this universe for reasons unbeknownst. But the Paladins are enormous, like, 12 feet tall or something, clad in impenetrable, like, super orichalcum armor that even the flames of hell can't touch, and they will invade hell fucking solo. Like, full Doom Guy style. These fuckers will just wander into hell and be so overpoweringly, annihilatingly powerful as to be able to slaughter their way through all of it to assassinate hell nobility, to kill greater demons, to destroy laboratories and do whatever the fuck they want. Which also introduces some questions. Like, for example, why just don't use these in the real world? Why not just use these to kill stuff in the real world? You could just mobilize all of them and go up to the gate of hell, hack away at it with your swords. I don't know. But the quote-unquote reason is that they're super valuable, despite, they're basically being unstoppable killing machines that can invade hell, and so surely operating on Earth would be significantly safer, but details. And they cannot be sullied in any way, like they must be kept away from any sort of human impurities as well. So they're only attended by gelded manservants, etc., but this is mostly just an excuse to have 7-foot tall paladins. More so than anything, really. Not to mention, dummy mommy Jesus. Mithril, so infighting isn't a reason. Then why hasn't Chaos won yet? Well, Chaos or Hell? Well, in 40k, infighting is a reason, because in 40k, the people infighting are their human subjects, as much so as the gods. The gods are playing in the war, but they don't give a fuck. But in reality, it's the human followers that are vying over authority and control. And whenever they do unify, they do attack. Whereas here, the human followers simply obey whatever demon is currently in charge. That's about it. And even then, there's multiple demons already located on the map with their own territories, so... Mercenaries in one. The entirety of Trench Crusade sounds like a bill of goods. We promised something, but they didn't give us the details, like the Carl Europe lawsuit. Kinda, like they just kind of threw stuff together and made shit up as they went, without making sure that the pieces actually fit together. Yasake, I would set the invasion to 700, keep the Visigoths, and split the world into Christian, Muslim, and pagan, several, and then demons and other things that keep all factions under siege on multiple fronts. Curry. Yeah, that would work too. Some way of dividing things up more so it doesn't end up being so incredibly fucking lopsided. Kongo Pongo, Satanic Samurai. That would kind of be funny. I see. At least if they have Asia or India, they'd have, some manpower to draw on, but you kind of know that the devs don't want to do that. Because if all of Hell's servants are coming from India, China, Africa,
You ignorant slut.
Oh boy. Maybe that woke woman had a point. Maybe the devs are racist. No, guys. It just so happens that all the evil people live in India. Hey, you know what?
Trick or treat.
I'm not objecting. I'm not objecting, okay? Atomic TC Aztec God exists. Sink European ship, apparently. Really now? I didn't hear about that. Mr. X21, God and his pet Arcus in Pokemon makes more sense. Kinda does. Midrel, the Israels rebelled after Egypt and the 10 plagues via the golden calf. Human short-sightedness is universal. Doubt, sin, and corruption is human. That it absolutely is. And they even, they mention, icons of the golden calf being used as a way to worship the demons in here as well. Jack Lau, we really need a world map. Seriously, this narrow view is really not selling the hell's odds here when they are surrounded everywhere. Yeah, no, unironically. Hell looks like it's on a losing front everywhere. This is not a map of Christianity barely holding on. This is a map of hell barely holding on. Atomic, also Kiev, but no Musky. Surely no political reasons. Well, they did give us Novgorod, at least, my dear Novgorod, but no Muscovy, no. Also, I'm pretty sure the Kievan Rus. The Kievan Rus, were they even the Kievan Rus? When were they fucking founded? They're using the wrong emblem, but if that's the Kievan Rus, which I assume it is, yeah, it's 800, 1200. But yeah, that would be the Kievan Rus. Not really the Ukraine that they're presenting it as here. But oh well. Details. It would be a little bit too time consuming to open Google, I guess. Right-wing extremism. It's like they just took the backstory of Lionheart, Legacy of the Crusade, and added in everything they could from Warhammer Old World. The Old World was so much better than this garbage. It was. God, I miss the Old World. I really do. At least in the Old World, you could actually see that the good powers were besieged because they were vastly outnumbered by the bad things. And the bad things had huge areas in which the laws of reality simply didn't exist. Whereas here, there is no suggestion whatsoever that the hell-controlled areas aren't just Earth, but black, basically. Benji on Streamlabs, thank you. Apparently, Vlad Dracula fights on the side of the Christians and made a forest of dead heretics. I think we need to claim this and work to claim it, invade their space, and just kind of take it over and play it ourselves. Possibly. The interesting thing with Trench Crusade is that it had a very large influx of normies who didn't really know what this was, who decided to invest into it based solely on the aesthetics of it. And that was essentially all. Just the aesthetics alone was the reason why they moved in. And because a lot of people in the 40k community also initially looked at it and thought, well, this looks pretty good. This looks like something we might be interested in. Now that way more of this is becoming public knowledge, I wonder if that's going to change. We don't know if that's going to change. I don't know if they might actually have managed to reach the wider audience who now doesn't give a shit about anything but the feel and the aesthetics of it. That is entirely possible. In which case, hey, they might have gotten away with it. But I feel like a setting with this many internal inconsistencies and this strange a focus on appealing to the very group of people who are not going to like this, along with the current slide quite rapidly towards right-wingism, isn't really going to thrive. And I feel like the left wing clutching onto this is going to come across as really weird. It's like, what, you're for God now? That's strange. JD's the new gold standard. Lore is so shallow they haven't named all the Paladins. Oh, why would they spend time on doing that, I guess? Revenant, so why didn't the devs make it Holy Land or plus all of Europe fall into hell and the rest of the world has to stand against us? Tick evil white boxes and pro-colored people boxes. Scared we would go all in on hell? Unironically, possibly. Because the overwhelming majority, in fact, virtually all of the game's style is European. Even the bits that are like Eastern, like the Iron Caliphate, etc., is less Islamist and more Assyrian, if anything. Like, this has a lot less to do with Islam than it does Assyria, which is also an interesting little point of note there, that maybe Islam isn't quite as Islamic as it wants to believe. Maybe it is significantly more pagan than anything else. And the only nods towards, like, more traditional Islam is more like just gear, kinda? Where they give them dumb-looking rifles because reasons, which would be objectively inferior weapons, as this appears to be a fucking flintlock. And he's got powder. He's got fucking ball and powder things around his bandolier here. So the Islamic world is fighting against the hordes of hell with flintlocks. I wonder how the fuck these guys invented artillery, but details. It's far from the most absurd thing in this setting, so, oh, goddamn well. And most of the cool-looking shit, quite simply, is on the Western Front. Most of the cool aesthetic is the Western aesthetic. Most of the cool iconography is the Western iconography. If they simply gave hell over to West, I think pretty much all of it would look cool, and then he'd be fighting against dudes like these, which would just be, like, weird. I mean, even the demons are primarily reliant upon Christian iconography and style to give them that identifiable Christian feel, you know? It's a Eurocentric setting made by people who hate Europe,
Shit.
which is a strange situation to be in. Caleb Knight, would have been neat to invert the Crusade to Christianity. It's just the Bolts. Northern Crusade were some of the last pagans in Europe. That is true, yes. The Northern Crusades. Whereas the early Crusades were entirely justifiable and accurate and correct, the Northern Crusades were a pinch more, just for land and territory-esque. Nico Bozo. They could diversify and make 3 different games. North-South America could be a boat game, and Asia-Africa against Russia-Australia in a dogfight air game. Definitely. That could be cool, yeah. Sealing Gato. TC was doomed the moment Bricky found out about it. Oh God. Oh God, indeed. Tom Sutton. Crusade against demons in World War I? I'm interested. Meet clone of Jesus? Nah, that's heresy. Going to ignore it all now. Should have done Nephilim. They should have, unironically. Nephilim would have made a lot more sense. Cadmus puts it brilliantly there in the chat. I hate the Euros, but Euros is all I've ever known. That is kind of exactly Mike Francino's art in a nutshell. He's a person who is deeply woke, who seemingly deeply dislikes Western culture and Western values, but that's all he knows. That is the only thing he knows and draws and makes, and so he's now stuck with a Eurocentric setting. Well, such is the hardship of life. It's tragic. Truly tragic. And Don't Pete XX. This isn't an IP worth contesting due to a combination of the developers themselves and the peoples they want to listen to. Let that be a lesson to see. On the claiming front, Trench Crusade is another interesting one. Because it is obviously very hostile ground from the developers' side. The developers do not like you. They do not like us. They are actively in opposition to us. And the audience is a strange mix of normies who don't know about any of this and basically just go like, oh, hey, it's like demons and stuff. Demons, that's cool. And a nucleus of very woke people who have seen this as one of their very few successes, because it was a success on Kickstarter, and so they're kind of nibbling around the edges now to be like, hey, this is this a thing that we can like have? Is this maybe ours? Is this maybe our thing? But it's also really racist and deeply distasteful, and the only good guys are Christian. I don't know. Is this our thing? And meanwhile, the right-wingers who are in there are just looking at it like, oh, I mean, you seem to be appealing to me pretty strongly. This seems to be a vehemently pro-Christian setting that our aura farms Christianity like fucking mad. Yet you hate us. I'm confused. It's a weird one. It's a very weird one. It's a very, 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 very weird one. A very, very, very weird one. For the moment, I am simply going to apply stick. I am going to complain about it, because it's very easy to complain about, and I'm going to mock it when it does something particularly idiotic, and if I ever feel a burning urge to try it out, I got Tabletop Simulator. Or alternatively, they're going to base their entire business model off STCs alone. Or STLs, excuse me. And I've already seen those uploaded in places, so Even if I wanted to support them, it would unironically be more difficult than pirating their shit, so shrug. Don't Pete XX. This isn't an IP worth considering due to a combination of the developers themselves and the people they want to listen to. Let be a lesson to see. If anything, it's probably just an opportunity to inform people about the setting. To look at the normies and go, no, this isn't what you think it is. Actually, these people fucking hate you. And you should really consider whether or not you want to support them. Because they definitely don't want to support you. That is definitely something to bear in mind, Misa thinks. Very, 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 very much so. However, I am finally done with my complaining. That didn't take more than an hour and 50 minutes, which is not bad. It's not bad. It's pretty okay. It basically boils down to, this is dumb. Christianity should simply just eat this, then move on to eat this, then eat this, and then eat all of this, because they enormously outnumber their enemy. In terms of manpower, in terms of territory, in terms of strategic positioning, in literally every single solitary thing that determines victory in war. So, dumb. Ugh. John Jim, Trench Crusade hurt itself in his confusion. Stick. Stick. For Trench Crusade, the stick. The stick, the stick, and only the stick. And Scarf the Strange. If only people like this would just take a few minutes to look up African mythology and creatures. They couldn't have had an Afrocentric fantasy setting instead of Eurocentric. Now, apparently they could. I mean, they could have made this in the early days of the demonic invasion, where basically it happens in the heart of Africa and Europe basically knows nothing about it. And it's entirely on Africa to resist the demon invasion. Back in like the 800s, when Europe wouldn't even have the technology to move into Africa. They could have done that. They could have put it in the Aztec lands. But again, they wanted that European aesthetic. They want that European style. Because it's a great style. Which is, again, why all of the iconography here is basically either Christian, European, or Norse. And virtually none of it is Eastern or Asian, and certainly not African. Tom Sutton, need a game with less heresy, more demon killing. Well, at least Doom the Dark Age is looking pretty good, so I'm looking forward to that. Counter-Structure has been over for 22 months. Thank you very much, sir. Doesn't want you make Sami demon hosts. Well, I mean, personally, I wouldn't have minded if the demons would have taken over a little bit. Yeah, around about this part right here. They can have that. Mostly Finnish. Mostly Sami territory. Mercenaries 21. You know, Arch, the next one idea would have worked with the city God Erased. He basically took the people in that city and made them into breeding angels. Maybe literally just raising an army of mortals in the back end to set in for emergencies. Maybe. And Mike Merchant, lastly. I'd say wait a few years for the devs to crash and burn, then claim and build it up. Possibly. A restoring Trench Crusade project in like 10 years' time. Not impossible. But now, I will bid you all adieu, chat. Thank you very much for watching. I need to have a couple of work days now, and whilst I learn Star Sector and work on some script. So I'll see you with Arch and Sargon on Thursday, where remember, we are exposing Sargon to Savvy this week. You gotta watch it. It's mandatory. Arch and Savvy, and Sargon, more importantly, in the same room together. It will be a feast for the ears, I'm sure. Discover the Strange, just give me a new Shadow Man game. Mistake 1, the Nephilim, made out of the city people God took. Ah yes, armies of fucking... Nephilim. That would actually be kind of cool, yeah. It would put the demons in an even worse position, but it would be cool. Good night, chat. We'll see you all on Thursday.